If Jesus is sitting at the right hand of the Father, is he still at work in the world today? Stay tuned to the Midweek Moment, beginning now. Hi, you're watching the Midweek Moment from First Evangelical Free Church right here in Colorado Springs, Colorado. I'm Pastor Zach. Pastor Rob continued his series on Jesus as our high priest this week and focused particularly on the reality that Jesus has ascended and is sitting at the right hand of the Father. Part of the good news is that Jesus is ministering to us, advocating for us so that we can have a relationship with God. But when we look around at the world around us today, we see a lot of chaos. The escalation of the conflict in Israel, the assassination of elected officials right here in the United States and Minnesota over the weekend, natural disasters, financial insecurity, the protests throughout our nation, and the military response to them all seem to indicate chaos rather than order. So it's not an unfair question to ask. If there is so much chaos, so much evil in the world, how can we rejoice in God sitting in heaven? Why isn't he working now? Perhaps the more important question to ask isn't why isn't God working, but is he working at all? Hebrews 1:3 doesn't just say that Jesus is sitting at the right hand of the Father. It also says that he sustains all things by the power of his word. Ephesians 1:20 through 23 says that God placed everything under the feet of Christ. That is, that he put Jesus in authority over all things. And Colossians 1:16 and 17 says that Jesus not only created all things, all authorities, all kingdoms, all rulers, both visible and invisible, but that he sustains them. When you look at these verses and many others throughout the Old and New Testament, you start to see that even though we don't always understand exactly what is happening or why it is happening, it doesn't happen outside of God's sovereignty or outside his power. One of the great questions people ask about God is, if he really is good, then why does he allow evil? All the way back in Genesis, we get one of our answers. Genesis 50:20 says, "But Joseph said to them, 'Do not fear, for am I in the place of God? As for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, to bring it about that many people should be kept alive as they are today.'" If you remember, Joseph's brothers had sold him into slavery and told their father he was dead, torn apart by wild animals. Joseph endured false accusations and false imprisonment, but was ultimately placed in a position of power and authority so that he could prepare Egypt for a time of great famine, and ultimately to provide food and shelter for his very own family. The brothers were afraid that Joseph would take his revenge upon them for the mistreatment, but Joseph saw that God was working throughout to preserve his people, just as God would again work calamity upon Egypt, so that not only would the Israelites leave Egypt for the promised land, they would do so weighed down with the treasure of the Egyptians. God himself said that the great tribulations that were visited upon Egypt were so that the world would know that God was really God, and that Israel, both then and for generations to come, would look back and remember that he really was God. I'm reminded of an illustration that my dad once used. He was driving down a long stretch of road and could see in the distance a terrible thunderstorm that was wreaking havoc on the town and the land beneath it, not unlike some of the storms we've experienced right here in Colorado Springs over the past week. From the distance, however, my dad could see that there was a rainbow in the sky above the clouds. He said that this was a picture of Romans 8:28. We don't always get to see the why behind the what when we look at everything that's going around in our families, in our country, or even around the world. But God has allowed us to see that when Jesus is sitting, ascended to the right hand of the Father, Jesus holds all the authority over every power, every event, every authority, every ruler, elected or otherwise, so that we can obey what we have been commanded in Philippians 4:6 through 7, to not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and supplications with thanksgivings, let our requests be made known to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard our hearts and our minds in Christ Jesus. We can trust that God is still working, even now, even in the chaos, even when we see suffering, because Jesus not only created, but is continuing to sustain all things. He is the ruler of all things, even as he sits and advocates for you and for me. Now, if you want more on this subject, I suggest taking a look at the second chapter in this month's giveaway, Tim Keller's book, The Reason for God. That chapter is entitled, How Can a Good God Allow Suffering? This book addresses this and other questions that an increasingly secular world may ask, and is a must-have title for any Christian's library. Even if you already have a copy, feel free to give it away if you win, and you can only win if you enter by entering any relevant comment in this video's comment section right here on YouTube. Although we have many things going on at First Free in the coming weeks, I wanted to take one moment and remind you that we are meeting together on June 29th at our new location on the corner of Mesa and Fontanera. Nope, there isn't a building there yet, but we are planning to have a great service for that Sunday at 9 a.m. so that we can avoid some of the heat. Be sure to bring your own chair and sunshield as we worship at the very spot our new building will go up. It's bound to be a great service, and I hope to see you there. If you want to know what else is going on at First Free, go to our website, onefreechurch.org, and just click on the What's Happening tab. Well, this is your midweek moment for the week. Hopefully it's been encouraging. As always, if it has, be sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time right here on the Midweek Moment. Have a great week.